I think for me, it was just a really great way to see as a kid that when you understand somebody's story, you can have compassion for them. It doesn't mean that you're going to agree with everything that they do or anything like that, but you get to see why they might have made a bad decision.
All right, and here we go. It is time for another episode of Cash's Top 5. We have a fun one today, a nice trip down memory lane. A fellow indie native joining me, R&B singer Kelsi Marie. How you doing, dear?
Good, good. Thank you so much for having me. This is a beautiful opportunity. I'm happy to be here with you today.
Oh, of course. You picked an incredible top 5. We were talking about it, kind of going back and forth about what we were going to discuss. You know, there's endless possibilities of what we can rank. And I said nostalgia is key for this one, a trip down memory lane. It's one I've been wanting to do for a while. So I was really glad that you wanted to do this one as well. Kelsi, what are we ranking today? What's our top 5?
So today we are going to rank our top 5 childhood books. I'm really looking forward to this as well. I think it just kind of gives you, it kind of dives into who you are as an individual and kind of what inspired you. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited to hear yours. I've been waiting for this.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It'll be, I'm a little older than you, so we'll see a little bit of a generational gap, possibly. I've got some oldies on my list, but were you one of those kids that you kind of had a book in the bag that you weren't supposed to, but you'd kind of sneak it from time to time? Would you do reading at bedtime? Like, what kind of a reader were you when you were a little kid?
No, I never really had to sneak anything, but I mean, I would just read things that made me happy or, that I loved. I wouldn't say I was like a huge, huge reader, but I definitely had those books that really stood out to me. And even now, I love to read. I love to dive into a story. I think it's a little bit different than a movie. Like you get to kind of imagine it yourself and really be in with those characters. So I do really enjoy reading now as well. But as a kid, it wasn't like a lot, but I definitely have my favorites for sure.
That's how it was for me too. And we'll kind of talk about, that the image in your head, the pictures and the characters, what you envision versus maybe a movie adaptation or a series adaptation of that. And what vibes with what you were envisioning versus I wasn't picturing that at all, but they did the best they could. So, all right, top 5 childhood books all time. Let's start it off. Kelsi, what do you got at number 5?
Okay, so I decided to do some from when I was really, really little, and then also some that are kind of some young adults. So
Me too.
one of my favorite, oh, perfect. Okay. So one of my favorites of all time was the book called Love You Forever. I'm not sure if you know that one or not, but
No.
it's definitely a child's book for sure. But what I love so much about it is in the book, you have, the child going through where they're being taken care of by the parent. And then it phases into the child taking care of the parent. And for some reason, just as a child, I always resonated with that. I thought that was such a beautiful concept. And the love was so strong between the characters. And it's actually interesting that played out in my own life where, I was taken care of obviously by my parents. And then later on in life, my dad actually developed dementia and I became a caretaker for him. And even though obviously that's a terrible thing to have happen, it was such a beautiful experience to be able to care for him. And, and I still do. Moved into assisted living now and I still am able to care for him. But for his own safety, we needed to move him there. But just that book, even as I've gotten older, has just resonated with me so strongly to be able to have that, kind of a transition through life. It just, love, it goes everywhere. It has no bounds. I mean, it really does. And so that's why I really love that book.
Wow. That is so
deep
that
rooted.
is so deep in loving. And after you started to describe it, now I do remember Love You Forever. It's the little kid. He's on the cover, sitting on the bathroom floor with the toys.
Yes, that's right.
I do remember that now. Yes. I remember
classic kids book.
That might have been the first time I remember crying as a kid because that book is so deep and emotional, like you said.
It is.
I feel really dumb about my number 5 for you because you kicked it with such a great one. Mine.
No, everything is welcome.
It's not Love You Forever. My number 5 is The Chocolate Touch. Are you familiar with The Chocolate Touch?
No, I don't know that one.
So it's kind of a retelling of the story of King Midas, the king who was so greedy, everything he touched turned to gold, and it drove him
Uh-huh.
crazy. So there's this greedy little kid. I think his name's John, maybe. Uh, he's a greedy kid. He's getting in trouble, and he's stealing snacks and whatever. And so he gets cursed with the chocolate touch, that anything he puts in his mouth turns to chocolate.
Hmm.
So he drinks water, turns to chocolate. He brushes his teeth with toothpaste, turns to chocolate. And he's at first he's like, "Oh, this is awesome."
Right. I was thinking that, but
Yeah.
no.
And then it's like, okay, eventually, yeah, you get tired of that. The King
Right.
Midas, I think he touched his wife, she turned to gold and died. And like he's like, oh, maybe gold isn't everything it's cracked up to be in this
Right.
kid. Maybe chocolate, maybe my greed. I need to keep it in check. So yeah, I just remember really enjoying it as a kid, that this, it was such a weird story. I always really enjoy when something is kind of a retelling or an adaptation. One of my favorite movies of all time, and listeners of the pod are probably tired of hearing this, but one of my favorite movies, "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" George
Hmm.
Clooney and John Turturro, and it's basically a retelling set in the 1930s South, but the story of the Odyssey. Odysseus,
Hmm.
10 years out on the seas, just trying to get home, all these trials and tribulations just to get back to his wife. Love
Hmm.
that. And so here's just this kind of funny, quirky retelling of the King Midas story, the chocolate touch, not nearly the level and depth,
No,
but
it
I
is
just really
deep
enjoyed
though.
it.
It is. That's a really deep story if you think about it, because I think a lot of people could learn from that. And I love too, like how children's stories will sometimes just simple, like make things more simple. And so but it's easy to understand. And I mean, those are life lessons. That's still deep. That's a good one.
I appreciate you having my back there, because
Yeah.
I wasn't too confident in that pick.
No,
Uh,
but really, really.
Love You Forever at number 5. What do you have at
Hmm.
number 4?
Okay, so number four. Well, I'm just a deep person. I'm sorry, but
That's all
it's
right.
this actually. It's called A Bad Case of the Stripes, and it's about this little girl who she can't figure out what's wrong with her, and her parents they get doctors and all of these different specialists to try to figure out what it is that she needs to do. And spoiler alert, but at the end, basically she figures out that what she needs to do is be herself. She needs to eat what she wants to eat, wear what she wants to wear, do what she wants to do. And I just loved that so much. And I read that book so many times when I was little. I think even in the fifth grade, I got to like read for the second graders, and I chose that book. I thought it was so cool. But yeah, I just love that story. Just be yourself. And that really resonated with me as a kid because I was kind of afraid to be who I was. I was very attuned to the world around me, and I struggled with being exactly who I was. And I think everybody does, but that book really inspired me. And the little girl kind of looked like me. So I was like, yeah, I really vibed with that.
Bad Case of the Stripes. That was one
Yeah,
I was curious if I was going to have heard of your picks, or if we were going to have any
yeah,
crossover or not, but I legitimately have never heard of that one. But I
yeah.
like it. I think that's a great story.
Yeah, it's definitely a kid's book. It's definitely more, for the younger kids. But like I said, I tried to pick a couple that were like from real childhood and a couple like young adults. So yeah, and I haven't heard of the one you said either. So we'll see how the rest of the list goes.
I imagine you'll have heard of some of them, but we'll get to that. My
Okay,
number
we'll
4
see.
for
We'll see.
you, I had Chocolate Touch at 5. Number 4 was actually a series, so
Hmm.
I don't know if that is against the rules, but they're our rules. We can break them if we want
I got series too. I was
to.
wondering the same thing.
Yeah,
So
no,
looks
that's
like we're on
cool.
the same page.
I may make you pick one favorite out of the series, and you can
I
do the
knew
same
it.
to me,
I
which is
knew
fine.
it.
Um,
Okay.
but the Magic Treehouse kids, did you
Magic
ever read the Magic Treehouse?
Treehouse. It sounds vaguely familiar. Tell me a little bit about the story.
So it's a brother and a sister, Jack
Mhm.
and Annie Smith, like very generic names.
Right.
They moved to Pennsylvania, and there's this huge treehouse in the house they move into,
Mhm.
and they go up into it. And there's some, like, I don't know if she's a witch or there's some kind of spirit there. Um, but essentially, the Magic Treehouse can transport them into history. So, like, they go back
Oh,
to the
hang on. You broke up there a
dinosaurs.
little bit.
Oh,
Say that last part again. I'm sorry about that.
am I back?
You're good now.
Okay,
Mhm.
cool. They go up into this magic tree house, and they are transported back into history.
Oh, wow.
They go back to dinosaur times. They go back to Night and Camelot. They go back to, the exploring days, the Spanish conquistadors and all this. Like, they go back to all this stuff.
Wow.
And then they find this medallion that kind of links all these stories back together, and then they end up going back home, and they, don't tell mom and dad, like, let's just keep this our thing. But it was just cool. It was just an adventure story. It was just they go back to the treehouse, and then now we're going to learn about the samurai, this book, and it was just a really cool series.
Yeah, I have never heard of that, but those are definitely the kind of stories I love. I'm all into the magic and the just adventures and that kind of stuff. I love that kind of stuff. So, but that's so funny. Both of those I haven't heard of. So we'll see about the other ones, but I'm gonna have to read them.
I was gonna say, we can probably read the ones we don't know of each other's, but I'll feel really weird about going to check out, like, can I have these kids' books? Like, I don't have kids, but they'll assume that they're for my little ones.
Yeah. Hey, we could just buy it, like, on a website or something.
Okay. Love You Forever, Bad Case of the Stripes. I'm curious what series we're going to get into. I have a theory. I have a guess, but we'll get to it.
You probably already know. Number 3 is actually one of my favorite books of all time. When I was little, I probably read it, I don't know, several times, but it was Because of Winn-Dixie. Have you ever heard of that one?
I think my sister read that.
Yeah.
I remember that title.
Yes, I just loved that book so much. It was really a cool way because, like, it's a child's book, but it really goes into a lot of deep issues like alcoholism or a parent leaving you or loss, and what really happens is this dog comes into her life and she ends up meeting all of these friends. And at first she's a little bit like unsure of some of these people, but little by little she starts to learn about them, and she finds compassion for each one of them once she hears their stories, and they all come together at the end and they're all intertwined and becoming friends. And I think for me it was just a really great way to see as a kid that when you understand somebody's story, you can have compassion for them. It doesn't mean that you're going to agree with everything that they do or anything like that, but you get to see why they might have made a bad decision, or something like that. And one of my favorite parts in that book is she meets this character called Gloria Dump, which in the movie is played by Cicely Tyson, which I just love her. But I love her so much. But the character is a recovering alcoholic, and one of the things that she did was put a bunch of the empty bottles that she drank out of into a tree to kind of remind herself of what happened. But to me, in a way, it was like she turned her pain into art. And of course I resonate like with that as an artist as well. But I just really loved that so much, that imagery really stood out to me as a child. And I just really loved that book, and it was just such a deep children's book, really, which, like, that explains me perfectly. I'm just a really deep individual, deep thinker. And so I love that one.
Man, you are kicking my ass right now with your picks.
You have good choices. No, I like your choices.
I love that pick. That's so cool. And I'm glad you said that there was a movie version, because I was like, I swear, I remember my sister reading it, and I remember there being a movie. It was like a PBS movie, or it was kind of
something.
on. Yeah, that's really cool. I've had that discussion recently with friends where, if you can really break down groups into smaller groups, people who either politically or socially just either have a bias against another group, or they just for whatever reason have this natural hate. It's like, nah, man, if you really got to know people, they're not just number on a spreadsheet, they're actual people. And
and there's things they went through to maybe guide them into that, that direction.
Yes, I think it's important. I wish more stories were being told, and I wish more kids were able to read stories like that. So I think it would try to help shape that worldview. Maybe we wouldn't be, experiencing some of the turmoil we are, but maybe that's a little pie in the sky.
I'll never forget, actually, I watched this interview of Maya Angelou. She was on Oprah's Masterclass, and she quoted a man named Terrence. She didn't give a last name. She just said his name was Terrence. And he said that anything that is human is not alien to me. And what he meant by that was anything that somebody does that's bad, I'm capable of doing as a human being if I was put in those circumstances. And the same for anything that a human being has done. And I've just always kind of felt like that. And anybody that you see who's done something horrendous, if you go back and you look at their childhood, you would be able to probably pinpoint why they might be an abuser now, or why they might have done something terrible. And like you were saying, like, I feel like if we could do that on more of a grand scale, we wouldn't let things like politics or whatever get in the way from us connecting, because we're really all one, and we're really all going through the same lessons, but
Mm-hmm.
they might come out differently, they might be experienced differently, but we're really, human beings are really all together. And if we could see that, and if we could see how powerful we are when we all come together, game changer. Game changer. Yeah.
This might
Get me
be
preaching.
the best pod I've ever done. Like, we're
I love
solving
it.
all the world's problems.
That's
This is
right.
such an inspirational episode so far.
I love
Um,
it.
My number 3 for you is not as inspirational. It's about a little a-hole kid that got in trouble a lot, but maybe that's why he resonated with me. Beverly Cleary is the author. She wrote all the Ramona and Beezus, and she had Henry Huggins, and she had her own little world. But the one I loved the most was Otis Spofford. It's from the early 50s. Have you ever heard of that one?
No, but I think I've heard of that author, though. I'm pretty sure I've heard of her.
She wrote a ton of kids' books.
Yeah.
They were all really good. But Otis Spofford, he was just he would the spitballs on the chalkboard in class, pranking the girls in class, and they got a pet rat in the classroom, and they did an experiment. Or they had 2 rats. One was fed, food from the cafeteria, like a well-balanced diet. The other rat, they gave soda and I think like junk food chips maybe too. And if the one rat was healthier than the other rat, then they would start serving soda in the cafeteria. They're like, oh, we got to rig it so that we can get that. So he was feeding the rat when he wasn't supposed to, and pranking the other kids, and he got caught. And there's this nice back and forth with him and this other girl named Ellen Tebbets, who she got her own book as well. Just all the hijinks of an elementary school student, a boy who, probably needs a stern talking to keep him in check. But it was kind of cool. I read it in the 90s, when I was a kid, and it came out in 53. And it's just funny how those types of antics and like you said, we're all people kind of experiencing this life the same, not the same way, but we're all experiencing the same life. It's timeless, the stuff that we go through, and how that kid in 53 is the kids that I'm seeing in school right now.
I love that.
A little bit of a comeuppance.
Yeah, but we're all going through a journey. When you're young like that, you can get so lost in your ego. You can get so lost in, I got to prove myself, especially in school. I mean, you got all these other kids looking at you and you feel judged and all of this kind of stuff. So I get that. But I love what you said about how something that resonated even back then can resonate now. And it just goes to show you this human journey is connected. It really does.
It's true.
Love that. Yeah.
Love You Forever, Bad Case of the Stripes. We have Because of Winn-Dixie. We're getting towards the top now. These are our favorite. No crossover so far. I'm curious if that's going to happen. Kelsi,
I know. I'm wondering.
Number 2, what do you got?
Number 2 is a series, and I know you want me to pick one, but I don't know if I can. The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because this is where we're the generational. I don't know if I'm that much older than you, but I was definitely past the Hunger Games, but you enjoyed them. So tell me about it.
Yes, yeah. I just really enjoy the stories that talk about light and darkness, and essentially the light overcoming. There's so many metaphors in that book, because it's really so you've never read it at all? Have you seen any of the movies?
Saw all the movies.
Okay.
Obsessed with Jennifer Lawrence. Huge fan.
I love her too. Yeah, me too.
But I didn't read a lot of the girls that I went to school with in high school and in college. It was really popular at the time, but it kind of missed me.
That's okay.
I kind of stopped once I hit college. Reading books turned into reading magazines and online articles and more boring stuff. I would like to, if I had the attention span, I'd go back to reading actual novels and books, but those were really popular back in
Yeah.
the day.
And when you're going to school, I mean, you got to read for actual work. So you don't always want to do that, for fun.
Yeah.
But, so you have the people who are in the Capitol who are like these high up people who they have everything. And then you have the people in the districts who really don't have anything. And they're literally just fighting to survive. And basically what they do is they pick like two people from each district, and they have to go into, I think they called it like the reaping, where they go into like the games essentially, and they have to kill each other, and only one person can survive, and that one person who survives is then glorified. And it's really just a way of keeping control on those who have less. And I think there's so much intertwined with the way our world is today. And like Tupac said it best, like, we have money for war but we can't feed the poor. And like I just, there's something in me that has just always had a real deep issue with that we have so much materialistic people, so many people who are wealthy beyond belief, but yet there's children who are starving. Like I can't comprehend it. It doesn't compute for me. And so stories like that, where the system gets dismantled and it gets called out, and the kind of the underdog wins, so to speak. Like those stories, just, I love that. And I think ultimately that's what will happen, and what is kind of happening, especially nowadays. People are waking up to so much of what's really, really going on. And that's something that really started happening for me really in my senior year. Is actually one of the darkest times of my life, to be honest with you. But I started waking up to what was going on in the world, and what kind of music I was listening to, what kind of shows I was watching, and how much they actually influenced me. And one of the things that changed my life forever was really introducing myself to Miss Lauryn Hill's music. I always knew who she was, but to really just intertwine into her music, it changed everything for me. And I could no longer not hear the messages that were coming through music and stuff. So I feel like I woke myself up a while ago, and I'm continuing to do so. And I love seeing it's not fun, but I love seeing that the world around me is doing that too, in so many different ways. And so, like I said, I feel like, Hunger Games really kind of, it was like real life in a lot of ways for me too, is to kind of just call out the system and, not fall in line with it, essentially, kind of like Katniss Everdeen or Jennifer Lawrence. But
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself. I mean, when people were reading these books, it was kind of a series of series. They had Hunger Games, then there was Divergent, then there was
oh yeah, I forgot about
Maze
that.
Scorch Trials, or the Maze Runner, or whatever. There was a bunch of these dystopian, oh, wouldn't that be terrible if this was the future kind of thing. I'm like, well, we kind of do have that. It's just not as cut and dry.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was marveling at the fact, social media can be such a terror in our life. All these people, like, oh my God, it's just so amazing that Jeff Bezos was able to go up into space and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay. So he's got $1 billion a year, every year, to put towards this space thing, this little project he gets to just put his name on. And while I'm Googling what the national school lunch debt is, kids who can't afford to eat, it's like 250 million, something that he could just be done with and still be able to do it. So while I don't want to make him out to be the only villain, there is a class of villainy going on that, while it may be not as cut and dry as it is in the books, we have the Capitol, and then Section 12, or 13 or whatever. But yeah, I'm with you. And I hope that it's really inspiring, truly, to hear you talk about your own kind of awakening and realizing your role in this world. And hopefully that will, especially through your power of music, being able to reach others and connect others. I hope more people are open to awakening themselves.
Yeah, I really do too. And I really think they are. I mean, I know humanity has a lot of ugliness, but for me personally, in my heart, I really do believe in humanity. I really do. There's a lot more goodness than what we always see. Media is good for that, because we do get to see the goodness. But I think, especially with things like TikTok, like it's becoming more popular to be real and to be honest instead of so filtered or, whatever that might be. And I really, really appreciate that. And I think there's going to be just more and more of that because people are really tired because we've all really been lied to in so many ways. And we've been lying to ourselves because we have to take responsibility. But like we are the ones who can make the change that we actually want. I think it's so easy, and I do it myself. We all do, but it's so easy to put blame on the outside world or the government or whatever. And it's like there are things that you can do in your everyday life to make those changes. You might not have the money, you might not have all of that, but you do have a light within you. You do have so much that you can give. And it doesn't matter where you are, what you do, what your job is, none of that matters. It's about your mindset and it's about how you go about approaching life. To me, it's more impactful for somebody who has an everyday job to go out and smile and make people feel loved than anybody who has a ton of money who's just keeping it to themselves or something. Like it's just, and I always say, like, if I ever make a lot of money or make it into music, like I don't want to be a billionaire. I don't want to do that kind of stuff. I want to give back to the world, and I will. Like I absolutely will. That's my second dream alongside of music. My other dream is to create my own nonprofit. I would love to create like a safe haven for children where they could go, and if they need shoes or if they need a place to sleep or whatever they might need. And, I know everybody needs help and I'd like to, put my hands in many different areas, but for some reason, I'm just really drawn to children. I feel like they are the ones who it's like, well, if we're going to really make a change, we need to start that love there and just keep it growing and keep it growing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that really is, when you boil it down, that's the one group of people or class of people that they didn't ask for their circumstance or their situation. Some
Right.
adults, maybe the system, or maybe it was kind of the deck was stacked against them, but there are things that you can do, like you said, in your control day to day. But kids
Right.
never ask for what they've got. Kids are
Right.
in, it happens to them, they don't happen to it. So I completely agree that would be
Yeah.
a tremendous endeavor to help the youth that really need the help.
Yeah.
Wow, this is such an amazing chat. I love that this is the way it's gone. We're talking about kids books, and it's so deep. And again, my number 2 for you is just kind of dumb fun. There's no real depth, but I like magic, so
Yeah.
my number 2 is Harry Potter.
Woo!
Uh,
I'm so happy right now.
it was huge when we were kids. I mean, we were at the time we were really putting kiddie chapter books down and then picking up actual more in-depth novels, for lack of a better term, or more heady young adult literature. Harry Potter came along at the right time. I mean, I remember Harry Potter reading The Sorcerer's Stone, or The Philosopher's Stone if you're British.
Yeah.
Was like the first time I heard Metallica or Led Zeppelin. The first time I watched when you watch a movie, like I remember like seeing Lion King in the theater as a kid and thinking, I can't believe that this is happening. I can't believe that something can be this good. Or the first time you tried ice cream, or your first birthday cake when you're a kid, you're like, something exists that's this good. Like, this is awesome. And I remember just thinking, it's such an original story. This kid goes off to this wizarding world, this thing, born into this crazy life. And the series just gets better and better as it goes on. I will say, if I had to pick one, they're all favorite. I love all of them for different reasons. Prisoner of Azkaban was the first one where I really felt that this was, now they're raising the stakes. They're not kids. Now they're getting into teenage years and they're facing much more adult consequences for what they're getting into. But the Sorcerer's Stone, the first one, the portal into that world, I remember reading the line, "You're a wizard, Harry." I mean, that just being an iconic moment of being 11, 12 years old or whatever. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should just tell you now, but that's my number 1 is the Harry Potter. That's my number 1.
Well, let's talk about it.
I gotta just give it to you.
No, that's great. What did it mean to you?
Oh my gosh. it meant so much to me. There's so many times, even now as I watch it. I mean, I've read through the entire series probably like 3 or 4 times. I've watched the movies countless times. I've lost count. But even now as I watch it, there's little things that will just stick out to me, and I just feel like, again, it's the darkness, or the light kind of overpowering the darkness. But Harry
Yeah.
Potter wasn't afraid to go dark. And I'll just say one thing for an example. The characters like the Dementors, and if you don't know, they're like the guards for the prison, and they are really dark and scary, and they will literally suck out your soul. And when they're around, you don't feel any ounce of happiness. But the way to get them to leave you alone is the Patronus charm, which essentially you have to think of your happiest thought to get this darkness to go away. When you're in the midst of, literally, you feel like you're never going to be happy again, you have to be strong enough in your own mind to create that happy thought, and create that Patronus charm. And Harry was so gifted at that. But when I was younger, really actually around my senior year, I was going through so much darkness, and a friend said to me, like, you have to think about it like you see in Harry Potter, like that's like negative thoughts or like those dementors, and you have to use your mind to find that happy thought that's going to get you through. And it sounds super corny, but it actually changed my life, like, for real. And
Yeah.
now, like, I see the positivity in everything. And it's not to ignore the darkness. You still, it's a part of the journey. And we see that in Harry Potter too. He wouldn't be as strong as he is without everything that he went through. But the fact that the darkness was so a part of him, and he actually had to kind of let that darkness kill itself out of him, so to speak, I thought that was so brilliant. And I love, there's so many parts, like when Sirius Black says to him, like, that we all have dark and light within us. It's which one that we choose to have, that we choose to act on, essentially. That was a
Right.
huge part for me. And Dumbledore, of course, we all love Dumbledore, but
Come
at
on.
the
Yeah.
end, yeah, I mean, come on, yeah, greatness. But at the end, you see the piece of Voldemort, out of Harry, essentially. And Dumbledore is saying, don't pity the dead, pity the living, and above all, pity those who live without love. And I'm just like my mind, like, it just exploded. And then on
Yeah.
top of that, he's like, he said, Harry was like, is this all happening in my head, or like, is it real, or is it happening in my head? And Dumbledore's like, well, of course it's happening in your head, but why does that mean it's not real? And I just think it validates, like, that your mind matters so much, and your thoughts matter so much, and you have the power to make those choices and to live in the light. It doesn't mean you're not going to have darkness, but when you think about the good things, like the friends that he had, or the love that he had from his parents, or whatever it might be, like, you can push through those dark times and essentially get your own Patronus and fight the bad. So I just love that. I love the whole book. I could talk about Harry Potter forever, so I just
Yeah.
love it so
No,
much.
it's that good and that
Yeah,
layered and that complex that
it is.
when you read it, I remember being 11, 12. I don't remember how old I was when I first read the first one.
Hmm.
And you could connect on a certain level. And then you read it, a few years later, like, I'm going to read back through the series just for fun. And you
Right.
find different
It changes.
angles but you
Yes.
still connect with it.
Oh, for
That
sure.
even now I'll be 33 later this year. If I were to go back
Yeah.
and reread the series, I would find things to connect with, either remembering what I felt like when I was a teenager versus being an
Right.
adult now. There's just so much greatness to that series. And I love that you pointed out that quote from Dumbledore, because I remember, if I were to get a tattoo, I'm not a
Yeah.
tattoo guy. I'm too
Yeah.
cowardly. I don't think I'm cool enough for a tattoo. Like, you got to you're either a tattoo person or you're not. I'm definitely way too square.
You
But
do it.
that quote would be up at the very tip top of
Yes.
ones I would want to get done, because that is such a great line. Now I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay, let's do
Uh,
it.
what is your Patronus? What shape would yours take?
I love that question. Um, I would honestly probably say like a lioness. Like, I'm a Leo. I'm not big into like
Really?
zodiac signs and everything, but I definitely resonate though with what they say about Leos. Not like arrogance or anything like that, but I can be prideful too. I mean, hey, I'm not perfect, but not arrogant at all. But most of what I read about Leos, like I do resonate with that, and I've always resonated with like lions, like lioness. There's just something so powerful about them, and they're just such beautiful animals to me. So I would say that would be mine. What would yours be?
It's really interesting that you say that because I was not expecting you to say lioness. I love that pick for you.
Thank
I
you.
thought you were maybe going to go songbird. I mean,
Yeah, or like a phoenix. I could see that
the
for sure.
phoenix. Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, it's got to be a bear. My
Oh, I could
Patronus.
totally get that.
I've always been the big guy, the big teddy bear. You give the big hug. And when I
Hmm.
was little, my dad nicknamed me Huggy Bear, which is the pimp from Starsky and Hutch. Not the best nickname for a kid, but he still to this day calls me Bear.
I
And
love that.
so yeah, I've always felt kind of. I'm very protective of my friends. I keep my family very close, my friends very close. I'm always wanting to check in on them and take care of
Right.
them. And you think about how a mama bear or a papa bear operate. That's kind of how they make sure they take care of their own. Um,
Right.
and if you leave a bunch of junk food out at a campsite, I'm going to come eat your food. So
Oh my gosh, that's
I
hilarious.
am, my
That's
Patronus charm
hilarious.
is definitely a bear.
Yeah, because there's like a fierceness about them. And I mean, obviously not in real life. You wouldn't want to go try to like hug a bear or something, but like there's just this like softness to them too. Like they look like they'd be all cuddly, but they're fierce. But like, there's all the teddy bears and everything. We'll just deal with that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I could
Yep.
totally see that. I could totally see that. That's a good one for
Um,
you.
man, your list is so good. I
Thank you.
Yeah, I've loved this. My number one for you, I had Chocolate Touch, Magic House, Otis Spofford, Harry Potter. My number one is also a series.
Hmm.
And I'm a little bummed because I went back probably within the last year or two to try to reread them just to kind of, oh man,
Hmm.
I haven't picked one up since I was little. I wonder if it holds up. And it does not. They are not for adults at all. Uh, but it's the Encyclopedia Brown series. Have you heard of Encyclopedia Brown?
Uh-uh.
So my mom read them when she was a girl, I believe. So they're probably, I don't know, 60s, 70s ish when they
Hmm.
came out. But it's this boy, Leroy Brown is his name. I believe that came out before the song Leroy Brown came out. But his nickname was Encyclopedia because he was this brilliant kid. His dad was the chief of police in this fictional
Oh
town
wow.
called Idaville. And whenever he had a
Hmm.
really bad case, he couldn't figure it out, he would consult his son, Encyclopedia. And he ran a detective
Wow.
agency out of his garage. He had his girl best friend, Sally Kimball. She was kind of the muscle. If anybody tried to come mess with Encyclopedia, she'd beat their butt.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
and there was the great villain, Bugs Meany was like the leader of the gang, the Tigers, that would always try to they were always scamming kids out of money, and they would
Uh-huh.
have, it was always the new scheme, like Kramer from Seinfeld. And it was Encyclopedia's job to kind of put them in their place, like, hey, Bugs scammed me out of this and he lied to me, and he would always prove he'd catch them in lies, and he was just such a brilliant kid. There's such an original type. It's like kind of a little Sherlock Holmes. Again,
Hmm.
I love adaptations of previous works, but it was an
Yeah.
original story. He was just a cool kid, very smart. I always really admired that. I always loved, I always thought it was weird that the nerds in school were always kind of ostracized for being the smart kid. I'm like, these kids are awesome, man. The smart
Right.
kids have it figured out. Um,
Hmm.
and then you all kind of, that eventually you realize like, oh no, we're kind of all in the same race
Right.
together, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But Encyclopedia Brown, definitely my number one. I love it. I hope they make a film series of it, or a TV Netflix. Hopefully somebody picks it up because I think it would be a
That'd be
great
cool.
thing to do
Yeah.
visually.
Yeah, I will say like I haven't heard of some of these books, but they all sound like things I would absolutely love. Like so, I mean, that we're kind of on the same page as far as these books. I get it. I like the vibe.
Is there anything that didn't quite make your top five? I know we had to kind of whittle it down. Was there anything that didn't quite make the list, or something that you just wanted to give an honorable mention to?
Let's see. Well, I read a lot of like deeper books like as a child.
I know.
I was gonna say some of
You've
them
got
are
such an
probably
emotional
too
connection.
deep and they're kind of sad. So, I mean, I would say no. I thought really hard about this list and I put the ones on there that I really, really meant the most to me as a kid. So I would say, honestly, I like my list. And, I definitely have a lot of other books that I loved, but more so I read those when I was older, and they're not really like children's books necessarily, but I read a lot of deep things that, I mean, that they changed who I was. They definitely made me who I am, and made me aware of treating everybody the same. Like you were saying, like the smart kids got ostracized. Like I was the type of kid, like I broke those barriers. I didn't care who you were. I didn't care what you dressed like. We were going to be friends. And if you were the new kid, come on, you're going to sit with me at lunch. Like this is how I am. Like I just broke those barriers because I would read books about kids getting bullied, or not being treated right from their parents, or, you just never know what somebody is going through.
Yeah.
And so it was just really, really a big deal to me to treat everybody the same. And that's actually one of the, I feel like a really great gift that I actually have been given, is to just be able to relate to everybody and to love them no matter what, and to see them as a human being and find that peace that is good in them. And I like that. I like that a lot. And I think that has to do with a lot of the books that I read. Now, one thing I got to ask you, did you feel like the Harry Potter movies did a good job to showcase the books, or was there something that you didn't like?
I tell you what, I remember at the time being bummed out that the images in my head of the characters,
Yeah.
because I had a very vivid image of the entire world, all the characters, what the
Yes, me too.
places look like, and so the movie kind of took that over, and
Yeah.
so the images in my mind have been replaced by that. That said, I think it was really, really, really good. I think there were a lot of
Yeah.
perfectly cast actors
Yes, me
to
too.
play the characters. I will say, uh, credit to her, the character of Dolores Umbridge in Order of the
Oh
Phoenix.
my gosh.
I
Yes.
absolutely hated that character when I read the book, and you want to strangle her in the movie. That's how
Yeah.
good of an actress she is.
So
Um,
good.
yeah, I would say overall they got, and I'm a fan of the second Dumbledore. After Richard Harris passed away, he was replaced by
Hmm.
Michael Gambon in Prisoner of Azkaban. I was a fan of him. I thought they nailed him. Snape was
Hmm.
perfect. McGonagall was perfect.
Perfect.
I mean,
Perfect.
the triumvirate, Harry, Hermione, and Ron were perfect.
Yep.
I was a huge fan. I was a little bummed they didn't. I was hoping the movies would have more Quidditch. I always enjoyed all the Quidditch
Yeah.
matches in the first couple
Yeah.
of books. What did you think?
I loved them. I really did. As I got older and kind of reread the books, I kind of noticed some differences. But I mean, you can't put everything into a movie, so you definitely get to see the little, like the way they took the story in the movie to make it make sense, or to kind of cut it down a little bit. So you notice those things for sure as an avid reader of the series. But no, I thought they did a really incredible job. I totally agree with you. I think all of the actors and actresses, everybody was just perfectly cast, and I loved it. I really think they did a great job. I will say, I think Harry Potter was one of my favorite like things that was transferred from a book to a movie, because most of the time I don't really like that. I thought the Hunger Games was good too, but
Mm-hmm.
most of the time I'm kind of disappointed, that same kind of feeling of like, oh, they didn't really get this right or that. But I felt like Harry Potter did do it right, so I felt good about it. We'll accept it.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I mentioned it kind of at the top of the episode. You are an R&B singer here in the Circle City, so I kind of want to mention, you have a few songs that you've released over the past year or two. I Can't
Hmm.
Even, and you have Freedom out there, and you have a new one out that I think is fairly new called
Hmm.
Empowered.
Yes.
That people really need to find. You were on Indie Style on the local Wish TV channel to showcase your
Yep.
songs. I know you're starting to get out there and do some more shows. Hopefully that will start to happen as we continue to open back up. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they find your art? Please give us all the
Yes,
links.
thank you. Thank you. So any social media, you can find me anywhere. It's Kelsi Marie. My name is spelled KelsiMarie. You can find me Kelsi Marie Music or Kelsi Marie Music 317. I'm on every platform. I would definitely love for you to come follow me, interact with me. I love talking about music. My music is available on any platform that you listen to your music. So Apple Music, Spotify, anything. it's also, there's actually videos for every song as well that are all on YouTube. So, please go check those out. I've worked with some really incredible people to help make this possible for me. Actually, in 2018 is when I started working with Kneecap, which is an independent record label. And I started putting out I put out my very first song called I Just Can't. And then I did Shine Your Light and Bringing the Truth, Freedom, Underestimated, and Now Empowered. And I've got some more up the sleeve too. So a little bit more is coming. But
Okay, cool.
yeah, I'm really excited about the future projects. And but yeah, I've worked with some amazing people. Uncle Jams is my manager. I've worked with B. Thompson is actually an amazing saxophone player. He actually got to play on the Oscars with her, which is incredible. I saw him, I was like, that guy's in my song. I'm like, that's so cool. I can't even believe. But he is actually just so incredibly kind and just a wonderful human being and incredibly talented. So to have him alongside of me in this video Empowered was just a really, really cool experience. And he is actually going to be doing an instrumental like of his saxophone of Empowered, and that's going to come out on August 27th. So
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to that. He's just an incredible artist. But yeah, that's my newest song. I actually decided to give myself that song as my birthday present this year. My birthday is on August 5th, and I released that song on that date as just kind of a birthday present to myself. So every song is definitely really special, but that one was a really, really cool moment to put that out.
Well, it feeds into the Leo season that you're kind of describing,
That's
the
right. Yeah.
empowered, the strong
Yes.
lioness. I mean, it
Oh, for
all kind of
sure.
fits, right?
Well said. I thank you. Yeah. And you know what's funny is it was actually written in a very, very dark time of my life, but like these stories that we're talking about, the light is gonna always win out. And to find that power, even in the midst of all of that darkness, is really empowering. It's a strong feeling to know, hey, I can stand on my own 2 feet and I'm gonna look to the sunshine instead of the rain. And it's so funny because those lyrics are so poignant to me, and I feel every single one of them. And sometimes even listen to the song, like it just makes me emotional because it's like I felt every single thing that I put in there. And that's what I do with all my songs. Like I kind of make the joke like my songs are like my children because like I
Yeah,
literally like I write them, I put them out into the world, and they are my soul. Like they are
yeah.
pieces of me. So it's really cool to get to share my messages with the world. And there's no greater gift than allowing me to have a platform to share those messages. So I'm really grateful to you for letting me be a part of this today and
Yeah.
getting to, spread the message. And I've always said, like, if I could inspire one person to, just go to the light or be their best selves or see that they are a light themselves, then my job is done. And so the fact that like I just get to keep going, like I'm like, this is the best thing ever. So I really enjoy it. And there's more coming, and it's definitely my passion and my dream for sure. So
Well, it's honestly refreshing to hear, to see somebody pursue their passion in such a way and be so willing to share it and spread the light, spread the happiness. So you're welcome anytime on the pod. This was
thank
such a fun
you.
episode. It was so much deeper than I
Yeah.
thought it might go. Um, all
Leave it to me.
mostly thanks to your picks.
No, don't say that. I tell you, you had really good picks too, honestly. And they all have life lessons in there. So it's the same. I really don't doubt yourself there because you had some really good ones. And I would love all those books. So
I appreciate it. Well, shout out to the authors for making great
yes,
children's literature.
yes, absolutely.
All right. Kelsi Marie Music. Go find her, go follow her, go download, go buy her music. And we'll see you hopefully on the road and out at a show and all the fun stuff soon. And we'll have you back on, Kelsi. We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you.